Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Flynn and I am the owner and maker of Flynn Sisters Boutique, and today I'm going to show you how to make a tumbler inspired by this design on this birthday card invitation that my daughter got from her preschool. I thought it was super cute. I'm going to have all the products that you see listed and linked down below in the description box. You might even find some discount codes for you there as well. So that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. You guys, so I'm starting with a fully prepped and sanded cup that I've already spray painted with a flat white spray paint. I've done about 2 to 3 coats of paint. I really want to get a nice solid flat white base here. You'll also notice that I taped off the bottom of my tumbler today with some blue masking tape. This is just to protect the bottom because I am not going to be finishing the bottom of this wine tumbler. I find that to be easier with these because it's really hard to get the bottom flat if you epoxy it. So I'm just going to skip that all together and you'll see how I finish the bottom later on in the video. We are using chalk paints today for our cute little polka dots. These are the Chalk It Up paints from Auntie Tay. I will have all the colors that I'm using listed and linked down below in the description box. I might even have a discount code for you there as well. I'm using an acrylic dot painting tool that I got from a mandala art kit. You guys might remember my dot painting tutorial from a few months back. This was one of the tools that was included in that box. I tested this with several different dotting tool or like dot painting tool things and this was my favorite tool. I'm using 2 different sizes here. I end up doing the majority of my dots in that smaller size, I think, because it just turned out better against that really curved surface. But you're just going to get a pretty generous amount of paint at the end of that tool and dot it on very carefully. You want to make sure that you don't have too much paint to where it's going to be dripping, but you also don't want too little paint to where you're not going to get a good amount of coverage. When in doubt, always go with less paint because you can always add more, but you can't always really take away, particularly in a situation like this where we can't really be wiping off paint if we mess up. You kind of have to really be confident and get that dot where it needs to be. All right, so maybe practice a little bit on, your parchment paper or a, paper plate, whatever. And I'm randomly placing my polka dots. You'll notice that some of my polka dots I'm going to go further down in the designated section for that particular color. This is so that I have like a smooth transition between colors, I guess. So the pink will go down in the orange will come up into the pink, and so on and so forth, so that we have a smooth transition for what will later be our rainbow, because this is going to be a rainbow polka dot situation, okay? But you can do whatever colors you want. I originally was going to do red, white, and blue for 4th of July weekend. However, I realized we're a little bit late for that, and I wanted to do a rainbow instead because that's what I want to do, and that's my choice. So anyway, once we've got all of the pink dots on, I'm going to let this dry a bit. We will be layering colors, so I like to let each set of colors dry before moving on to the next. This also helps with, me avoiding any kind of mess ups. Because this is chalk paint and because it's really warm in my garage this week, these are going to dry pretty quick. So here I am moving on to the orange dots. Some of my dots are going to overlap other dots for a layered effect, and some of them are going to be placed closer, some will be farther away. I really wanted just a really kind of random look here. So here's how I just overlapped one color from the other. This is going to make a really fun design element for our polka dot pattern and really provide something special rather than just random goofy dots all over the place. If you wanted to do this with acrylic paint, you absolutely could. Maybe add a little bit of pouring medium to your acrylic paint so you get a little more bang for your buck with them, a little more coverage. I would have preferred to use acrylic paint for this particular project. However, I did not have acrylic paint in these shades, And it was really important to me for some reason that my rainbow be in these colors. Like these shades together are like, in my opinion, a super cute, absolutely adorable kind of retro vibe rainbow. Once I got about halfway down, I did start at the very bottom just so I could get a feel for how much space I had left for each color, knowing that I still had the teal and the green to move on to. After I paint all my dots, I'm going to make sure that that paint is completely dry before I move on to this glitter step. It only took about a half hour for those to be fully dry. And I've got a little puddle of Alumilite's Amazing Sealer. This is very similar to Mod Podge. I just think it's a little bit thicker and it doesn't have an odor to it. And I don't know, I just feel like it's thicker. It gives me a little more like hold to my glitter. I'm using that same dotting tool to create little dots of the glue here. Some of the dots will be overlapping our paint dots and some of them will be standalone. And then we'll just sprinkle on our glitter. I only did about 5 or 6 dots at a time because I didn't want the glue to dry before I poured the glitter. And I'm using Tangled from Britches and Bow Shop. This is such a cute fine cut gold, perfect shade for this particular project. And I will have it linked down below as well as a discount code. So you're just gonna let it rip over those glue dots that you just made. And then I like to use a pair of scissors to aggressively tap off all the excess glitter, smacking my scissors into the top rim of the cup. This doesn't really damage the stainless steel or anything, so don't worry about that. If you were worried about that, you could slap the arm of the cup instead, whatever you like to do. I also like to take a brush and kind of brush off any of the excess glitter, just so I could see really well where I got coverage and where I didn't. And also so I can move on to other sections of the cup without some rogue glitter sticking to the sides there. I'm going to continue this process all the way around the cup till I get my desired amount of gold glittery dots, and then I'll let this sit aside to dry for at least 20 to 30 minutes before we move on to the next step. Now that that first round of glitter is pretty much dry, I'm going to go around with a smaller dotting tool and just touch up any paint spots that might need a little bit more coverage, might need a second coat. Just kind of dab in a little bit where you need better coverage. I'm going to let that completely dry again before we go around and double check if we need any kind of touch-ups on the glitter as well. And for that, I'll use that same dotting tool after I've cleaned it, of course, and just dab on a little glue where needed, and again, pour on some more glitter, aggressively tap off the excess, and then we're going to leave this whole thing to dry overnight. You don't need to let it dry overnight. I just was kind of done looking at it for the day. But usually it would just need probably like an hour or so for that glue to just really fully dry. Once we're fully dry, we're going to very aggressively brush off any and all excess glitter. I spent an exorbitant amount of time brushing off the excess glitter because it was really bothering me. Once I've got all the excess glitter off, I'm going to seal this with Rust-Oleum's 2x clear gloss spray paint. One generous coat should be enough. If you're worried, you could do an extra one, but I just did one pretty solid coat here. After I sprayed on that clear spray paint, it dried pretty quick in about 5 minutes, and then I was able to take off my blue masking tape that I had placed on the bottom of my tumbler earlier, so that bottom is nice and clean. And now we're ready to apply our first coat of epoxy. Now I'm ready for my first coat of epoxy. I've got 30 milliliters of Alumilite's Amazing Quick Coat. This is their fast setting epoxy. And I'm gonna apply it like I normally would. I'm just going to avoid the very bottom of my tumbler because I'm not going to be applying any paint or epoxy to that very bottom. As I explained earlier, I don't like to finish the bottom of these wine glasses because it's such a small bottom surface area right underneath that big curve. It's really hard to get it balanced and even, and they tend to be wobbly all the time. So I'm going to avoid that headache, and we're just not going to finish it. I will show you how we establish a seal later on in the video though, so don't worry about that. Okay, so if you're following along at home and you're trying to figure out why I didn't epoxy the bottom, that's why. All right, after I apply this epoxy, I'm gonna hit it with my torch real quick to pop any bubbles, and then we're gonna let this dry for about 2 hours or so. Again, this is a fast setting epoxy, and your dry times may vary based on the brand and type of epoxy that you're using. Now that that first layer is dry, I'm ready to start sanding. I'm going to sand around my top rim like I normally do. We're going to sand down until we expose a fine line of stainless steel up here at the top. This is where our final coats of epoxy will adhere to create the seal for our tumbler. This way we're establishing the seal on the outer rim rather than the very top rim where it's more vulnerable. Next, I'm going to move on to the bottom rim. I've got a craft knife here. I'm just going to scrape off any kind of excess epoxy that might have gotten down to that bottom rim where I don't want it. Just kind of gently cutting it off around the edge here. If there's any like epoxy drips that might have gotten onto the very bottom, you just want to gently pop that off with the edge of your craft knife, being careful not to scratch the stainless steel. Then I'm going to take a 60 grit sanding block, and I'm going to sand just around the very bottom of my tumbler here to try to expose a fine line of stainless steel around the very bottom of our design in the same way that we did the very top of our design. Again, this exposed stainless steel down here at the bottom is where we're going to establish the seal. You want to be careful that you angle your sanding block in a way that you're not scuffing up the exposed stainless steel at the bottom. If you do this at home, you'll start to see it's actually pretty easy to do that, and especially with a design like this where we just have one layer of epoxy and paint underneath, that epoxy layer is going to come off pretty quickly to make the stainless steel line that we're looking for around the bottom of our design. This process would obviously be a lot easier if we weren't working on a very curved tumbler. If the bottom of our tumbler was straight, like a skinny straight or traditional tumbler, we could just tape off the bottom, but it's really difficult to get a uniform tape line on this sort of curved, tapered cup design. So I hope this makes sense. Once we're done with our sanding, I'm going to wipe this off with some rubbing alcohol on a paper towel, get all that debris cleaned up nicely. I'm also going to pay extra attention to this bottom, make sure it's nice and clean and that we don't have any excess epoxy down there. Now I'm ready for my decals. I've already cut these using just regular Oracal 651 vinyl in Cricut Design Space. I will link the file that I use down below in the description box. It comes with the offset layer already included, so that makes things super simple. All right, and I'm just going to layer this vinyl with my transfer tape like I normally do. We're just gonna eyeball it here. All right, I know some of you are rolling your eyes. You hate to eyeball stuff, but that's just how I roll. All right, once I'm confident I've got that layered nicely, I'm gonna smooth it out with my vinyl scraper, get all the bubbles and wrinkles out. I placed the decal face down on my desk and lifted the paper backing back up off the decal to loosen it so that when we go to transfer the decal, it comes up with no drama. We'll use the overhang of our transfer tape to anchor our design to the tumbler while we measure. We're going to measure twice, so we only have to cut once. Make sure that this is nice and even and not crooked. And then I will use the hinge method to apply my decal like I normally would. Once I got my decal on there, I was ready for my final coats of epoxy. I did back-to-back final coats. This layer was 30 milliliters. I let that dry for about 6 to 8 hours. Then I came right back over the top with my actual final coat, and then we were done. So that's it for this tutorial. Super simple design, but I just absolutely love this kind of retro rainbow look. Of course, you could use any kind of color combinations that you can think of for this. I'm so excited to see what you guys come up with. I love the detail of the gold glitter. I think it just really makes the colors pop and adds some fun interest. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section, and if you like my video, please be sure to give us a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I upload new videos every Saturday and sometimes Wednesday if I have time. Thank you so much for watching my video. We'll see you again soon. And a big thank you to all of our Flynn Sisters exclusive members. Thank you for your pledge. Your support means the world to our channel. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.